What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Countdown Scouting Network. I'm your host, Joey Garcia, and today we are going to talk about some of the Senior Bowl risers and fallers. Some of the guys, basically, some of the guys that I thought improved their stock, and some of the guys that I thought might have hurt their stock a little bit in the Senior Bowl this year. If you guys don't know, the Senior Bowl is some of the best upperclassmen, seniors that are coming out into the draft, and it's kind of a week of practices where they get to practice with some NFL coaches, and then they get to play each other um, just in a little scrimmage to kind of show what they've got against other NFL talent. Without further ado, let's get into this. I've got a lot of risers. We'll go quickly through them. Not too many guys that I think hurt their draft stocks this year, which is good. You don't want to see that. You want to see everyone uh, do as well as they can and make as much money as they can. Let's get into this. All right, so risers. The first guy I want to talk about is a dude who I think rose probably from being top of the day 3 pick to maybe back end of a day 2 pick to probably going top 50. I would say he's probably a top 3 safety in this draft. It's Sidney Brown from Illinois, the twin brother of Chase Brown, the running back from Illinois. Um, he's a guy who isn't extremely athletic or anything like that. His testing numbers won't jump off the charts, but he is very instinctual, and he somehow just knows where the ball is. So he finds that ball, and I think today, or I think in practices, he really showed what he can do, and he impressed me. And from what I've heard, he's impressed a lot of scouts as well. Next guy I want to get into, we can talk about DeJuan Jones from Ohio State. He's a tackle, 6'8", 300, 345, 355 pounds, and he's long. He's got like a 7'4" wingspan. So he's got an extremely long wingspan at right tackle. He's also got really, really good feet on one-on-one drills, where it's usually a drill made for the defensive line to excel. He looked good. His feet were really, really nice at 355. I don't know if he's all the way at 360, but I'd say he's at least 340, and he was moving very, very well. So I think his draft stock improved tremendously. Again, he's probably a top 50 pick as well. Let's get into two of the quarterbacks that I really, really liked from this. First guy is Jake Haener from Fresno State. He's a smaller guy, but he's kind of got that Gardner Minshew vibe to him. He doesn't run as well as Gardner, but it's just kind of that vibe of I'm undersized, but I'm smart and I'm determined, and I'm gonna get it to my guys however I can. So he throws a little sidearm sometimes. He does some fancy stuff with the ball, but nothing like Mahomes or anything. Um, he's a guy that if you're looking for a backup quarterback that might turn into Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, um, or even just a Gardner Minshew, where he's a reliable starter, one of the best, or reliable backups, and one of the best in the league. Being a backup, Jake Haener might be one of those guys. Probably a fourth round guy. Maybe he falls to the fifth, but I would say he's probably firmly a fourth round guy. Tyson Bagent, also known as Bagent Zero, for some of the guys that are in the TDN Discord, they will know what I'm talking about with that. Bagent Zero from Shepherd. We watched some of his film courtesy of the Draft Network. If you go on and subscribe, it's $30 for the whole year. You get to play with their mock draft machine. They've probably got one of the best mock draft machines out there. So $30 for the year. You get all their articles, you get all their profiles, you get to play around with that mock draft machine, and you get to join the TDN draft, the Draft Network premium Discord, where you talk with all the guys. You can talk with me. I'm in there. A couple other guys. We joke around. We also talk about scouting, and there's also days where we go through all 22 film together and talk about what we see and stuff. So it's a very fun Discord. I highly recommend it for anyone that enjoys this kind of stuff. Again, it's $30 for the year. It's not much at all. So there's a shout out to them. But we watched Tyson Bagent, and he looked good. He's a guy who it's one of those where what's it going to be like when he has to jump to the next level from playing at Shepherd all the way to the NFL. But I think if you're a team who has a one of those bridge quarterbacks, but you're not high enough in the draft where you're going to be able to get one of those studs. This is a guy in the middle rounds I would want to get on my team and see if I can develop into something. His arm strength's not the greatest, but it's nothing to slack. It's nothing to cry about. He's got good mobility, not great mobility. He's not an elite Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Justin Fields type, um, but he can scoot around when he has to. Think about Russell Wilson when he first came into the league, or what Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence can do right now, what Dak Prescott can do right now. Um, he's got kind of that kind of mobility where he can maneuver the pocket, and if he has to run for 4 or 5 yards to get the first down, he will. Very impressive. I'm very intrigued to see what team he goes to, but he's probably got a lot of teams' interest in the middle rounds. Let's go to two of our running backs. We've got Evan Hull from Northwestern and Tyjae Spears from Tulane. I'm not going to talk much on Tyjae Spears because everyone's talking about him right now. You can get 50 different guys' opinions on Tyjae. I love him. I have him as my fourth favorite back, or fourth favorite. I have him as my fourth best back this year, and I'm extremely intrigued with him. He catches the ball well. He runs hard. He's smaller than I thought he'd be because he runs. He's got good contact balance. He's not the quickest, not the fastest, but he's got good vision. He's got good power for his size, and he's got good hands. I was impressed with that. He doesn't pass block particularly well, but I think he does enough where if he's your number two running back, you're very impressed with him. Kind of think of like a Cam Akers type coming out of Florida State. That's kind of what I see of him. He's probably 5'10", 205, not top end speed, but he can lower the hammer at 5'10", 205. He lowers that hammer. So that's someone I think of. Evan Hull, he's a what my friends, when we watch him, what we kind of talked about was he's a jack of all trades, master of none is kind of what we talk about. But he's an old school guy. He gets the job done. When he makes cuts, his cuts aren't the sharpest, but somehow they still end up, making guys miss. He's got good hands. He sticks his nose in there to try to pass protect. He's not the greatest pass protector, but he sticks his nose in there. He's a willing blocker. He fights for extra yards. He's not very. I don't think he's very fast. I think he'll run a mid 4.4s. Mid 4.5s. He might hit a 4.6, but I'm thinking 4.55, something like that. But he's got really good hands, and he runs okay routes. He's a guy that I think you can probably start off as your pass catching back. Again, he's a day three guy. He didn't jump up very impressive, but I'm just saying this is a guy that is going to stick on an NFL roster. I believe that probably be an RB3 for you. But who did I have? I had him. I was talking to someone in the TDM Discord, and I had Theo Reddick is kind of what I saw in him. He's kind of a Theo Reddick without like Theo could cut, Evan Hull can't cut as well as Theo did, but he's kind of that kind of guy if that's what you want to think about. So that's all I got on these running backs. Let's go to some of the wide receivers. And I know I'm rambling a little bit. We don't have very many guys in the fallers category, so I want to get through these guys and give them their praise. So these wide receivers, Michael Wilson from Stanford and wide receiver Tank Dell from Houston. Nathaniel Tank Dell is a small back. I think small receiver. I think he's 5'6", 165, 5'7", 165, something like that. But man, it kind of reminds me of Calvin Austin when he came out last year in the Senior Bowl, where no one could guard him. You could not guard this dude. Whether it was press coverage, he slips right off. Whether you're playing in zone, he finds the hole. One-on-one drills were not fair. No matter who he lined up against, one-on-ones were not fair. He was fast. He's quick. He makes good routes, and he teleports, basically. You see him running this way, and next thing you know, bam, he's all the way on the other side of the field, and you wonder how he does that. He's very, very quick. He's got good enough hands. He makes contested catches even for his small size. I am concerned about his size a little bit, but you're talking about a guy I thought would be a fourth, fifth rounder. He probably jumped up into the middle of the third, if not earlier than that. So um, I really, really like him. Michael Wilson from Stanford. If his medicals come back, he's going to be someone that flies really far up the boards. If his medicals are bad, he's probably a sixth, seventh round guy. But he impressed. He's a good jump ball guy. He's got nice speed. He creates um, enough separation where it's not going to be an issue. Um, and if those medicals are good, he's probably again a third round guy. There's a lot of good middle round wide receivers in this draft, and I think as long as the doctors clear him, he's going to be one of the top 7, 8 guys that come off the board. Um, these next two guys, John Michael Schmitz from Minnesota, we talked about him on the channel before the season started. He's lived up to it. He's a dog. He really is. He should be a first round pick. I don't know if he will because centers don't get picked that high usually, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone picked him in the 20s. And he goes on to have a 4-time All Pro career. Like he's a dog. He's a good leader from everything I've heard, and he just absolutely bullied people in one-on-ones, burying guys. He's not even the biggest guy, but he's a. All I can say is he's a dog. I don't have much more about that. His snaps are always good. In the run game, he's good. Obviously, pass game's not that much of an issue, especially because the majority of the time you've got a guard helping. But he's a road grader, and he's someone I definitely would want on my team if I needed an interior offensive lineman. Even if I needed a center, even if I needed a guard, I'd see, well, what would my center move out to guard, or maybe I move him to guard for 1 year because he's good and he could play guard. He's a really good center as well. And then Emil Ekiyor from Alabama is a guard who was an okay guard at Alabama. He played some center at the Senior Bowl, so now he can play all 3 interior spots on the offensive line, and he really proved himself on one-on-one drills. He looked good. He looked good in the actual game as well. Um, I don't really have anything negative to say about him. I thought he was a day 3 guy. He's probably talked himself up. I would say 30 to 45 picks. So you probably made himself another million as long as he tests well. I think he's going to the combine, and if he's not going to the combine, as long as he does interviews at his pro day well, you could see him being probably a 4th round pick and being a guy that if he doesn't start on a team, he's gonna be one of those rotational swing interior offensive linemen that you want on your team. Usually teams will carry around 7 guys. They'll have their starting 5, have a swing tackle, one that can play left and right, and then have a swing offensive lineman. Sometimes they'll carry 8, but he's a guy that you're really going to want to carry because he can play all 3 interior spots and he can play them fairly well. He's not going to blow anyone out of the water, but you're not going to say, "Oh my gosh, we have Ekiyor in there. Just get ready for the quarterback to get hurt." It's nothing like that. So he proved that he can handle it with the big boys, like he has been at Alabama the whole time. So he's just kind of proved that he's better than I thought he was at least. The last 2 guys, we'll go quickly on these. Darnell Wright, right tackle from Tennessee. Uh, he's got really good feet. I thought he wasn't as long as he was. His arms are longer than I expected them to be. He's got good size. I think he's just a solid guy, and I don't know if he rose up in this draft class necessarily, because I know we were already talking about him being, probably the second right tackle or first right tackle taken, him and DeJuan Jones, but he was being talked about as a top 60 guy. I think he's confirmed that he's a top 60 guy. Luke Musgrave, Oregon State tight end. He's a freak. I didn't know before watching the game. Because he's been injured. He blocks fairly well. He catches really, really well. He runs good routes. And he ran a 4.45 and told the scouts that he felt like he was running slow. So I'm excited to see what he runs at the combine coming up. But he's going to run in the 4.4s at 250 pounds. So just a freak. If his medicals come back, he's probably a first-round tight end. He's probably the second tight end taken after Michael Mayer from Notre Dame. So, all right, let's get into these fallers really quickly. We'll start out with the running back Chase Brown from Illinois. Again, he's the twin brother of Sidney Brown. We talked a lot of praise about Sidney Brown, the safety about him being instinctual. Chase Brown, I really like his tape. He's a smaller back, but he packs a punch. He's got thick thighs, so he can kind of take some contact. He's got good vision. Um, he didn't catch as well as I wanted him to be because he came in a little lighter than I thought. I thought he was around 215. He came in, I think, around 202. Um, he didn't catch as well as I thought. It just felt like he was nervous the whole time he was out there, which concerned me a little bit. Um, but he didn't do terribly. He's not going to fall from being a third rounder to an undrafted guy, but he might fall into the middle or back end of the fourth round, maybe even the fifth round. Um, just depending. He's smaller than I thought he was. He didn't run as fast as I thought he would. Like I didn't see the explosion that I thought I'd see, but he's a solid back and he's going to be fine. I just think his name's going to be called later than we anticipate in April when the draft comes around. But again, he's still if he's your RB2 on your team, I'm very happy with Chase Brown and I would take him as an RB2 on my team all day. Let's go to the edge rusher, Andre Carter from Army. I know we were talking about him because he's a freak. He's got long arms. He's super tall. And we talked about him being a first round pick probably 2 months ago. But then there's concerns about he lines up in the wide nine, and that's really all he can do is rush the passer from this really wide outside angle. He's not very good in run support. And he got bullied in one-on-ones. He couldn't do anything in the game or in the scrimmages unless they had him out on that very wide set. And when you do that, you got to bring a safety down to help cover that gap because you got run support that you still have to do, or you have to shift the linebackers over, and it creates a whole thing where it kind of just makes your run support not non-existent on his side really. And he couldn't get off blocks. He was getting thrown down. He didn't look strong. He didn't have enough speed to get around these guys. I'm worried about him. So you're talking about a guy that we talked about might creep up into the first round. Probably really is just a second round guy. I think he's gonna fall to day three. I think he's gonna have a huge fall. And I don't wish that on him, but I see a lot of concerns, and I was hoping with the Senior Bowl that some of them would have been answered. But it looks like it actually might be worse than we anticipated. So, um, yeah, that's that's all with him. I hope he tests well at the combine and hopefully helps his draft stock. But I see a fifth round. I don't know if I'd spend more than a fifth round pick on him right now. So, Rasheed Rice from SMU. I love Rasheed Rice. Watching him, um, during the season, but he didn't separate well. He was dropping balls. Um, he wasn't outrunning guys. He was his jump ball ability, which he's a guy that's known to have great hands. He wasn't doing much. Um, and I guess it's because he wasn't separating as much as he's used to, going from SMU to being covered by better guys than the AAC, which I like the AAC. I think they're a solid conference, but I don't know if that's what it was the jump, if he was nervous, but he just wasn't separating and he was dropping some balls and he just wasn't as fast as I thought he would be. And you're talking about a guy that, again, was thinking about sniffing that first round, that back end of the first round. He's probably a third round. I would say he's probably going to go in the middle to early third round unless something dramatic changes. And then the last guy, QB Max Duggan from TCU. Baby Tebow is what I call him, and he kind of lived up to that name of Baby Tebow. If you remember Tebow back in the 2010 Senior Bowl, he didn't perform very well. He was inaccurate. He wasn't reading the field fast enough. He was having a lot of turnovers. That's kind of what Max Duggan was doing. And again, Max Duggan was a guy who you're talking about being a middle round guy. Just to basically be a backup and maybe compete to be the starter one day. And I think he also falls to day three. Um, I'm very concerned with his elongated throwing motion. Was just even more dramatic at the Senior Bowl, as well as he felt like he wasn't reading the field correctly. He couldn't half the time he was getting sacked before he could even throw the ball in scrimmages. So I don't know. I think again, it's one data point, right? The Senior Bowl is one data point. It's a long data point because it's over multiple days in the week. But again, people can have bad weeks. So I still think these guys will fall multiple rounds. Um, but they still have time to make it up with the combine, with combine interviews, with their pro days. So there's still plenty of time to make up some ground on this. But that's all I've got for you guys today. If you appreciate I would appreciate it if you guys, hit the like button, hit a comment on what you want me to talk about next. We will be talking about the combine once that happens. Some guys I thought impressed me in the combine, some guys that I was a little disappointed in, as well as we're going to be talking about once I finally get my rankings down for the 2023 positional draft class. We're going to be talking about 2022 versus 2023 in positions, quarterbacks, running backs, which group we thought was better. So the first one I've been working on is my running back class. So 2022 running backs that was headed by Ken Walker, Brees Hall, Damian Pierce versus this 2023 draft class, which is Bijan Robinson from Texas. You've got Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama. You've got Tyjae Spears from Tulane, like we've talked about. So there's guys like that, and we'll go ahead and talk about that. So again, I appreciate everything you guys do. Hope you have a great day, and I will see you guys next time. Peace. Peace.